Alright, so the streamer Johnny Somali can get life in prison in South Korea because of something he did. And before we get into the legal details, first, let's take a look at a clip of the crime itself. But real quick, I just want to explain to you what's going on here. So keep in mind that Johnny Somali, this nuisance streamer from the US, had gone to South Korea, and in South Korea, keep in mind that they have these statues where the name for them is the Statues of Peace. And these statues were built in South Korea to honor the victims of SA. Now I can't say the full thing, but I'm pretty sure most of you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, now that you have the context for what's going on here, let's watch this clip of Johnny Somali with one of these statues.
Yeah. Japan hates this thing. Right here.
Yeah, make sure to show it.
Japan hates this thing.
Tell them why. Tell them why.
Let me sit down with it. Put it, hold it. Japan hates it. Let me sit down with it. I don't know if it's respect to sit here. I stand with the Korean people. Bring it closer to me. Come closer. I stand with the Korean people. I love Korea. And everything that I did in Japan was for the Korean and the Chinese people. Let's go. Let's get out of here.
Alright, so as you just saw right there, that was just absolutely insane, really crazy thing right there. This was completely inappropriate behavior from Johnny Somali right here. You know, kissing the statue like that is just absolutely crazy. And it's even more crazy given the history of that statue, you know, given what the statue was built for, given the context of what victims this statue was honoring. So yeah, this whole thing was absolutely insane. And now keep in mind, this clip is not like it's from, you know, yesterday or like a week ago or something. It's from some time ago. And the thing about this is that this clip ended up causing so much outrage in South Korea, which of course makes sense, that Johnny Somali eventually ended up facing legal consequences because of the insane stuff that he was doing in South Korea. And in case you don't know that much about Johnny Somali, just know that this is a nuisance streamer who goes from country to country and he does absolutely crazy, outlandish stuff in public. And it's to like get a reaction from people or to just, you know, do something really insane to get people's attention. And so, you know, he had been doing this in a whole bunch of countries. He mentioned in that clip, you know, what he did in Japan. So keep in mind that before South Korea, at one point he was in Japan. And just like in South Korea, in Japan, he had been doing a lot of crazy stuff there as well. However, over there, he didn't end up, you know, getting stuck there. He did eventually leave the country. So it's not like he ended up facing some really horrible consequences or something like that. But then when he was in South Korea, this wasn't just the only crazy thing that he did. You know, he did also some other stuff that he tends to do, you know, just causing problems in public and stuff like that. But this was a thing where, you know, it just went so far because of the historical context of it all and just how much of an insult this was to the Korean people that, you know, this was something where now he ended up facing proper consequences for it. And then the government of South Korea was now after this guy. You know, he was facing legal problems because of it. And to this very day, as of the recording of this video, those legal problems are still there, and Johnny Somali is still going to court, and you know, he gets all these like court dates and stuff, and you know, he has to like defend himself in court and all that. And you know, he's ended up pleading guilty to a lot of the charges. So there's that, you know, he's definitely going to South Korean prison at this point. But now we need to talk about how it may not just be that he's gonna have to deal with all these existing charges, but rather he might have to deal with the new charge. And this is something that could actually lead to life in prison. Okay, so yeah, that's the crazy thing here. Alright, now real quick, I just want to say that I'm giving out shoutouts on this channel to people who subscribe, hit the notification bell, and comment letting me know that they subscribed. If you do that, then in the next video, I'll give you a shoutout. Now, as for the last video, I want to give out a shout out to Southern Scythe 2494. Thanks for the subscription, I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed the content. Now, back to the video. Something that the YouTuber Legal Mindset pointed out in one of his new videos, which is titled Johnny Somali Risks Jail for Life, Fast Facts. And in this video, he points out how the insane things that Johnny Somali did with the Statue of Peace in South Korea could end up being the thing that gets him charged in a way that it can lead to life in prison. So keep in mind that the person who's depicted in these statues is actually a girl who I believe is depicted as a 14-year-old girl, and so she's a minor. And Johnny Somali did this crazy stuff with that statue. And now coming to the law, which is that there is actually an act in South Korea for the protection of youth from things of this nature. And if someone ends up getting charged because of it, the minimum would be 5 years in prison, but the maximum is actually life in prison. And that's actually the thing that Legal Mindset points out, which is that keep in mind that of course, this is a statue, this is not a real person, this is not a real minor. However, this statue does depict a minor. So it's actually possible that there could be an interpretation of the act where even though this is not a real person but rather a statue, you could say that, hey, this person still committed a crime against a depiction of a minor like that. And keep in mind that Legal Mindset does point out that, this would be the first of its kind, sort of, this would be the first time that this kind of interpretation is implemented. However, it's not impossible. Keep in mind how angry people in South Korea are at Johnny Somali because of the insane stuff that he's done, and the insult to these statues and, what they represent. So it's possible that the South Koreans can come after him from this point of view. So yeah, the maximum sentence because of this is life in prison. So yeah, at that point, it is over for Johnny Somali. Because up till now, the discussion used to be like, oh, he's going to prison in South Korea, he's ended up pleading guilty to multiple charges. And so, the discussion was like, okay, well, how long is he going to prison, So how many years, how many months, all that stuff. So now, if this ends up happening, the discussion isn't going to be about how many years. The discussion is going to be, bro, it's going to be his life. He would have potentially just thrown away his whole life over, infamy online, trying to gain notoriety online. Just, oh my God, dude, that would actually be insane. Johnny Somali is still a young person at the end of the day. He still has so many decades ahead of him. And, he could have gone on to live a nice, happy life, and truly made the most out of it. But now look at the situation he's gotten himself into. If they actually do charge him with this, dude, it's over for him. He's cooked. And the thing about this is that how are you going to defend yourself against this in court? Let's say they charge him with this, right? And then it's like, okay, oh yeah, don't worry, we can still defend ourselves in court. He has a lawyer, they can go make the case in court. Okay, how are you going to do that? Because keep in mind that the evidence is online. He himself posted this online. This is something. Here's the thing about him, right? Johnny Somali is a really interesting case when it comes to all of this, legal stuff, where usually, people have to, gather evidence against somebody and then, you present that in court and you have to, actually go out there and, look for the evidence and, compile the evidence and all that, right? However, in the case of Johnny Somali, it's like, dude, this guy just straight up live streams the evidence and then uploads YouTube videos of the evidence and there's clips online of the evidence. And it's like, this has to be the easiest kind of slam dunk case ever, I swear. How on earth is Johnny gonna defend himself in court if they do end up charging him like this? The evidence is right there. They're gonna show the clips. And, I suppose maybe, the thing he could do is that maybe he could argue against their interpretation of that act and, the law and all that. So he could say that, hey, I don't agree with your interpretation of this. And so he's gonna say that, hey, yes, that's actually me in the clip. However, the way you're charging me, we're gonna argue against that. And so, at that point, it's like a very technical thing, and also it's very subjective, It's one of those things where it's not like very clear cut. Like if you ask two different people something so subjective, they're gonna have like very different kind of responses and opinions on it, right? And so at that point, it just becomes just like very subjective thing where, it's basically just luck at that point, And the thing about him is that it's not like he's made some kind of good impression on the judge or anything like that, So, that's the problem here. He doesn't have any goodwill. So, yeah, dude, overall, this guy increasingly seems cooked. And, if this happens, it's over for Johnny Somali. Like, it's actually over for him. And now keep in mind that there is a trial date for Johnny Somali coming up at the end of October, I believe. And so, when that happens, I'll most likely make a video on that too, so I'm going to cover that as well. And so we're going to see how things go, we're going to see how this situation develops. So far, it's not like it's concluded or anything. It's still an ongoing situation. He has pleaded guilty to multiple charges. However, there are 2 charges that he hasn't pleaded guilty to yet. And we're going to see how that plays out, So yeah, let's see how that goes when that happens. And so yeah, these were my thoughts on this situation. And now I'm interested in hearing what you have to say down in the comments below. So leave a comment letting me know what you think and we can have a discussion down there. And with all that being said, guys, this is Alexi signing out.